yesterday, after a long hiatus, we got the withdrawal limits from ATMs hiked to 10,000 rupees per week from 4,500. That's more than double. But more important, current accounts current account holders can now withdraw a lakh instead of 50,000 per week, which hopefully is a big relief for SMEs. How big is it? Is it a relief? And are we at the end of withdrawal limits altogether? For all those questions, Rajiv Anand, Executive Director at Axis Bank, joins us. Morning, Rajiv. Always good to have you with us. It's one thing to withdraw the limit. In the past, even when it was 4,500, we didn't always get it when we went to every ATM or any ATM. What's the sense now? 100% will 10,000 rupees be available when we go to any ATM in the country?
As we currently stand, about of the total, including for Axis, about 75% of all ATMs are dispensing cash at any point in time. So clearly, the process of sort of normalization has sort of is well on its way. And I think the fact that the RBI is now confident enough to be able to increase the limit, I think is symptomatic of that. And I think look at it also from the perspective of psychology. The more that people know that cash is now available and it's no longer in short supply, in a sense you need to withdraw less. And I think that psychology will start to play out as well as we go forward.
Oh yes, Rajiv, good morning. That is playing out. Wanted some thoughts on also the denominations. Is there enough supply of 500 rupee notes now? Because that of course was the biggest problem to start with.
Anuj, there's been sort of the mints have been working over time to be able to deliver more and more 500 rupee notes into the system. So clearly we are certainly seeing a lot more than, let's say, what it was about 15 days or a month ago. What we're also doing is we're increasingly moving some of the lower denomination currencies into the semi-urban and rural, where there is greater cash demand. And so therefore the process of sort of normalizing even geographically is something that banks are working on.
Rajiv, you said 75% of your ATMs are dispensing cash now. In terms of a timeline, when are you targeting 100% ATMs dispensing cash?
Like I said, Sonia, I think it's a journey. Remember, this number used to be close to, let's say about a month ago, this number was close to 50%. So we've made significant progress over the last 1 month. So I think we will get to close to 100% perhaps in the next 1 month or so.
Okay.
But I think the key is really that the first question that Lata asked, is there money available in the ATMs? The answer is yes. And I think the important one also is the fact that savings account balances have been kept constant at 24, which really means that you can get almost up to a lakh of rupees a month for savings accounts, which is really more than enough. But I think we've seen some pressure, particularly for small businesses, to be able to make payments to daily wage earners, etc. And so therefore it's very good to see the limit on current accounts going from 50,000 to 1 lakh.
What's your reasonable expectation when withdrawal limit is not even an issue? I mean, all limits are removed.
I think, Lata, on a conservative basis, I think 1st April would be a good date, but I won't be surprised if it happens earlier as well.
Okay. Now, for what that means to a bank and its P&L, would you be happy if some part of your deposits went away? If you can give us some ballpark idea of what percentage you think will be a constanter in terms of deposit growth?
I think the fact that what we're really seeing is that yes, in the normal course of business, some money is going out of savings accounts, but savings account is ultimately a transaction account. Remember that it's not just cash that is driving sort of transactions in through our savings accounts. It's also digital, and I'm sure like we've been speaking many times, digital transactions, whether it's debit cards or through UPI, we've seen a multifold increase in terms of the number of transactions that are going through digitally. And I think so in that sense, the habit formation of using digital, I think is certainly happening. What I'm also seeing is that even in the period of 1st Jan to sort of today, that elevated levels that we've seen continue to be so, which clearly means that habit formation is certainly happening.
No, so what will be the deposit growth for the system? I mean, is it going to be 15, 20%, or is it likely to moderate when the withdrawal limits are gone?
I think Lata, the point I'm making is that there is withdrawals already happening. Whether it is through a digital route or with the existing limits, and so therefore, in that sense, any increase from here is not going to materially slow down the deposit growth that we are seeing. Like I said, at the end of the month, once again, we will get salary credits into the account, etc. As businesses start to. Interestingly, what we are also seeing is that both our current accounts and savings accounts are now seeing inflows of new currency as well, and so therefore transactions are certainly happening both inward into bank accounts as well as outward in terms of withdrawals.
Okay, Rajiv, a word also on credit growth, because ultimately banks is about taking deposits and then lending them out. So if you could give us some more guidance on when that's likely to pick up.
We have our results in 2 days' time, so I don't want to give too much away there. But I think like I said, the process of normalization is I think well and truly begun.
Okay, you did mention.
I'll just give these two numbers to Rajiv. Sorry, Sonia. Year to date for the system, I'm not saying for Axis. Year to date, growth of deposits is 12.7% and growth of credit is 1.4%. I mean, you have raw material which you are not using. That's the point. And if you looked year on year, the growth in deposits is 15.2, growth in credit is 5%. So, therefore, how long will banks be, finding a pressure on their margins because they have more raw material than they can use?
I think you've got to look at that in the context of this huge inflow that we've seen into current and savings accounts, quite unnaturally in a period of 2 months. As a result of that, you've also seen a significant reduction in MCLR, because ultimately it's the marginal cost which has come down, which has really got passed on to customers. So I think as the impact of demonetization begins to wear off in the underlying economy, we should see, particularly on the retail side, we should see a rejuvenation of credit growth as well.
Okay, I wanted to just ask you about asset quality. I know you're just 2 days ahead of your numbers, but just wanted some sort of a trend, because you have made a fair bit of recognition of bad loans, especially from your watch list in Q2. You've also told us that H2 will be better than H1 in terms of lower slippages, etc. But I want to know what the update is after demonetization, because we've seen a fair amount of pressure come in, especially from SMEs, from the agri sector. Do you see that result in higher slippages in Q3 and Q4?
You'll have to wait for a couple of days for that, Sonia. You'll get a full picture.
Sure, but just any kind of trend on whether things have worsened since we spoke last?
Like I said, you'll have to wait for a couple of days. You'll get a full picture.
But for the system, you think second half will have more NPLs because of demonetization for the banks?
I don't think demonetization is going to drive higher NPLs.
Okay.
That correlation, I think, is doesn't is not playing out.
Okay, that at least is a positive. Thank you very much, Rajiv, for joining us. We would have liked a time when the credit growth will at least match